This is a American-made humpback clock. And I'm going to walk you through how to operate, set up, and kind of all the basics you need to know to own one of these. First thing is you need to wind it once a week. They're called 8-day clocks, which means it's designed to run for a week before you have to wind it. Usually they'll go a little bit longer than that if they're healthy, about 10 days or so. And you want to wind both winding holes. So there's one here and one there. One is for the time, one is for the strike. On this clock, the one on this side is for the strike. This one is for the time. Now, when you wind it, there's only one direction it'll go. So if you try one direction and it feels rock hard, try the other way. If you feel a little springiness, that's the direction you need to go. And every week you'll want to wind it about 7 full turns. So rule of thumb is about 1 full turn per day that it runs. So if it's run for 7 days, 7 full turns, which would be 14 half turns. Once you get to that point, about that 7-turn point or so, you'll get to a spot where it all of a sudden gets really tight very abruptly. So it'll be getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and then all of a sudden it goes whoop, and you feel it get real tight. Just stop right there. And then wind the other one. Now they don't necessarily turn the same direction. Some turn opposite directions of each other. Some turn the same direction. Some turn left, some turn right. So you'll just have to try it on your clock and figure out which way it'll go by just feeling which direction feels a little bit springy. Now if you're not sure if you wound it up all the way or not, then you can always look in the back at the mainsprings. So you can see this mainspring looks nice and tight, but this one is a little bit uncurled still. So you can see some air gap through the spring coils. That tells you that that spring is not fully wound, and you can go a little bit further. And so if you're like, I don't want to go too hard or too overwind it or something like that, then just take a look at those springs and they'll tell you the answer. And again, we've got some other videos on this, but you really can't overwind one of these unless you're trying to break it, which I know you're not. So you just go till you feel it come to an abrupt stop and don't go any further than that. Now, at the end of the week, you might find that the speed is not correct. So the hands are pointing a little faster, a little bit slow with respect to actual time. There's usually a way to adjust that on these on the front side so you don't have to take it off the mantle. There is a little third hole right here. That's not for winding, that's for setting the speed. Sometimes that hole is down here or up here, maybe somewhere else, but a lot of them have that. And to adjust that, you use the small end of the key. So this end is for winding, this end is for setting the speed. So this is called a double-ended key. Now sometimes you'll find clocks, the key has been replaced at some point, and so you've only got one end. You might need to get a double-ended key or have your key modified with the second end. And then you put that in here and give it a little twist one way or the other. Some clocks are more sensitive than others. If it's only a couple minutes per week, I would just go maybe a 16th of a turn or 1/8 of a turn and see what that does. Now, sometimes you'll go to adjust the speed and you're adjusting and adjusting and it just doesn't get any better. Well, if that's the case, take a look at the back, and right here there's a little gear, and that gear should be turning as you turn the key, as you turn the short end of the key on the adjustment knob. So you can see that gear turning back and forth, and that turns another gear above it, which turns a little screw in there. If those things aren't turning as you turn the adjustment key, then it's not adjusting the speed. And so your key might be the wrong size, the adjustment might be damaged or something like that. There's a lot of different things that can go wrong. But kind of a hack, if that is happening, you can actually just go in and turn those gears by hand to adjust it. Again, if you don't have the short or the small end of the double-ended key, you can just adjust that by hand if you need to. It's a lot easier if you have the right key, but if you don't, there's an alternative solution. Okay, so now you've wound it, you've adjusted the speed, and with getting that speed adjusted, it can take a long time to get it dialed in just right. With a lot of playing around, after several weeks, you can usually get it dialed in so it's very close. But just understand that right out of the box or right after repair or over time, that's going to be something that's not perfect, and you'll just have to tweak it and adjust it. That's totally normal, and that's totally okay. But with a little playing around, you should be able to get it to where it's real accurate. Now, you've wound it up, you've adjusted the speed, you need to set the time. And so to do that, you're going to only turn the minute hand, and you're going to only go clockwise. Don't ever go backwards on one of these. They oftentimes will bind up and get stuck, or you can break things if you go backwards. This is an antique American style movement, and they generally will not let you go backwards. Now, most other clocks you can go backwards on. This one you can't. So this is one of the exceptions. So as you go forward, wait for it to finish striking. If you don't, then it's going to get the strike off, and it's going to strike the wrong number of times. Now, let's say it does strike the wrong number of times, which this one just did. How do you fix that? We've got another video on that goes into more detail. But in a nutshell, what we're going to do is run around to the hour and see what it strikes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 o'clock. So I'm going to take this hour hand and twist it to the 12 o'clock position. Then I'm going to take my 2 thumbnails, put them on like this, one on either side, and just give that a little nudge toward the dial to make sure that that's on real tight. See, what's happening here is this hour hand is only attached to this shaft with a friction fit, and it's a tapered shaft. And so when you turn that hour hand, that doesn't actually change anything on the inside of the clock. It just makes the hand slip on the shaft, which means that when you move it on the shaft, you get it to point to what it thinks it is on the inside. That also means that it can kind of work its way off that tapered shaft and kind of work its way this way out of the clock. And then eventually it'll get loose and it'll flop down. And so that's why you want to use your thumbnails and give it a little nudge to make sure it's on there nice and snug. And that adjustment or correction is something that's pretty normal to have to do on these American clocks. It's called a count wheel movement. And what that means is it doesn't know what the hands are pointing to. It just knows that I struck 12 last time. I'm going to strike 1 next time, and then 2, and then 3. And it doesn't care how long it's actually been or what the hands are pointing to. It's just going to keep going in order. And so in this case, this clock ran for a long time. And so the strike ran out of juice first. And so the time kept running, but it wasn't striking. And so it ran for some number of hours. And then I just wound it up again, and it's striking the wrong number of times because it didn't know what it was pointing to. It just knew that it struck, I think it was 10 previously, and then it did 11, and then 12. And so that is a really normal thing to happen with these clocks. If it's been, if you let it run for a couple weeks, you're on vacation, that can happen. If you accidentally bump the hour hand, that can happen. If you go too fast when you're setting the minute hand, that can happen. So really normal, so you need to understand that adjustment. Now, if you're transporting or moving this clock, you always want to take the pendulum bob off. So the bob is right here. And the bob is the heavy part of the pendulum, usually round or octagon, hexagon. And it just hooks onto, it's called the leader rod right here. Just like that. So if you're going to move the clock, make sure you take this off first, because if you don't, this big heavy weight swinging around and can bend the springs and damage some things. So we want to have that off before you transport it. And then whenever you get to where you're going, put the bob back on. And you don't need to give it a swing when you do that. Just put it on your mantle where you want it to be. And then, once you get it where it's going, just give it a little tilt. And now it's going. So you don't need to give it a big swing or a big jostle. Just a little tilt is all it needs. And then when you do that, you should hear it ticking. And it should be a nice, even tick. Tick, 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 like a metronome. If it sounds like a heartbeat or a galloping horse, you're likely to have issues. And so if your clock's been serviced recently, in our shop, we always dial everything in for a level table. So if your mantle is not level, you might need to put some shims under one side or the other. But just make sure that tick is nice and even. And if it's not, that will either need to be adjusted by leveling it, or if when it's level it doesn't tick evenly, you might need to have it adjusted. A very simple adjustment. So that's what you need to know for a antique American humpback clock. This movement is the standard, very, very standard American movement. They all look very, very similar to this. And so if your movement in your clock looks like this, then this will apply to your clock. So hope that helps. Hope you enjoy your clock for many years to come. And now you know how to operate and set it up.